Teresa was very proud of her firefighter father. He was the strongest and most courageous man for her. After all, he put out fires and saved people's lives. She asked her dad to take her with him to work many times, and her dad would take her to the fire department on a tour. She even got to ride in a big fire truck and was allowed to sound the siren, but he never took her on a real fire. When they had forest fires in Australia, Teresa's dad was the first to go. She was very worried about him and always waited for his return home for a few hours. Dad talked about animals that suffered from the fire. Koalas are the ones who got burned the most. They're slow and the fire burns their paws. Teresa asked her dad to take her with him again. She would carry the animals out of the fire, but Dad refused. A day later, he returned home and asked his daughter if she still wanted to help. She said of course. She could bring water or dig ditches to stop the fire. Dad smiled tiredly and replied that she would help with sewing. Teresa was surprised and asked how sewing would help. He explained that the rescued koalas have large burns on their paws, and in order to prevent infection from getting into the wounds and help the animals to recover faster, they need special mittens. Doctors are trying to sew them, but there are too many animals, and doctors and nurses have a lot of other work. Teresa said she really wanted to help. She added that her dad came up with this story only to comfort her and keep her busy. But Dad opened the site of the Animal Protection Organization and showed the ad. Under it, the requirements for fabric and the kinds of patterns for mittens were shown. Teresa went to the store with her mother and bought the necessary fabric, and then they began to sew. But they needed to sew a lot of gloves, and Teresa would get tired quickly. Then she called her classmates and friends, and together with their mothers, they set up a real sewing center. The children and their mothers were able to sew hundreds of pairs of mittens, which they handed over to vet clinics. When fires were put out and Dad returned home, he said that he was proud of Teresa and her contribution to the common cause of fighting wildfires. She asked her if she thought it was an easy and useless task. No, the girl smiled. Now I understand that there are no small deeds in common trouble. Every little help is important and needed.
There were 3 friends who went to the same college. They were always together and promised each other to stay friends for life. It was the end of studies. They finished all the exams and decided to take holidays before entering adulthood. But one of them was aware that her parents were not as wealthy as the parents of her friends, and her savings will not be enough for the trip. She told her friends about the issue and offered to go not that far and not that expensive. Having discussed, the friends found her offer not very interesting. They told her not to be upset and that one day the 3 of them would go somewhere else for sure. But now they will go without her. Soon the friends returned full of impressions and emotions. They told her stories about the cool trip they had, countries they've been to, and adventures they've experienced. When they asked her what she'd been up to, She replied that she got an internship. And then she excused herself and said that she needed to go to the bathroom. But she never returned to the table to her best friends from childhood. She was actually coming back to them, but on the way, she overheard their conversation. Should we tell her about the party this Saturday? We've been together for so many years. Why would you? Did you see how cheap she's dressed? And what her job did to her? We're gonna be ashamed of her at the party. For a moment, the girl thought it was a nightmare. But then, the waiter accidentally hit her, and she realized that this was happening in real. And all she heard was true. Tears poured from her eyes. After several years, the fate brought them together at the opening of another fashion boutique owned by that poor girl. Her friends, already grown up by that time, also wanted to go to this party. Many things happened in their lives, and they looked not as good as before when they had been students. Waving to her from the crowd, they rushed to her. They ran up to their ex-friend, complimenting and asking her to let them inside. They talked about how great she was and that she had become a successful businesswoman. Redhead: I'm glad to see you too. But in so many years, you didn't even try to meet me after that day in the cafe. I was not good or successful enough for you. You were ashamed of me and didn't want people see you around me. Therefore, is there need to change anything now? You didn't need me, and now I don't need you. Moral behind this story: is it worth sharing the joy with the people who leave you in trouble? Everyone should decide for themselves. Liam was in a hurry for an important meeting. He was nervous, constantly looking at his watch. And as luck would have it, all the traffic lights in his path were red. An elderly woman was crossing the road at the next traffic light. She was walking very slowly and had a bag full of groceries. The green light came on and all the cars around Liam drove off, but he couldn't. There was a woman in front of his car with her bag. She got scared and dropped her bag. Her groceries were on the road. Liam couldn't take it anymore. He got out of the car and ran up to the woman. He collected the groceries back into her bag and dragged her out to the sidewalk. "Lady," Liam shouted, "why don't you just sit at home? Don't you have someone to get you what you need? Can't you see that you're disturbing everyone around you?" "Honey," the woman replied, "I am an old person, and you're going to get there too." Liam was angry. He replied that if she's old, then she needs to live in a nursing home and not walk the streets and waste other people's time. Liam left the old woman on the sidewalk, returned to his car, and drove on. Liam made it to the meeting. His business partner was waiting. They signed the documents and shook hands. The business partner said that his mother lives in the city. He always visits her when he comes to town. He invited Liam to celebrate the start of their partnership at her house over dinner. Liam agreed. Liam bought a bouquet of flowers and arrived at the appointed time. The partner invited him into the house. The table was set inside, and it smelled of delicious homemade food. Liam said, "Everything looks very pretty." The partner smiled and said that it was all thanks to his mother. He loves her very much, and for him, she's the most important person in the world. An elderly woman entered the room. Liam stood up, smiled, and held out the bouquet to her. The woman thanked him for the flowers, and when she removed the bouquet from her face, Liam broke out in a cold sweat. It was that old lady from the crosswalk that he was rude to in the morning. Liam felt ashamed. He was also afraid that the woman would recognize him now, and she might tell her son how Liam offended her this morning, and then he will lose an important partner in his business. And she recognized him. She smiled slyly and only thanked him for the beautiful bouquet. When they were alone, she said, "You're a good person, Liam, and I know that this morning you simply could not resist because you were in a rush. But next time, remember that all mothers deserve respect. Someone, somewhere, will treat your mother with respect as well." Liam kissed the woman's hand and thanked her for her wise words. Help make the world a kinder place by sharing this video.
How he stinks! Tired of these beggars. Sir, I haven't eaten in over a day. Spare as much as you can, please. Hasn't washed for several weeks. Do good, and it'll come back to you. Not the right time, Mom. I'm driving. Mom, I'm busy. The phone is out of range or turned off. Your mother is in the hospital. Come. Mom, I'm sorry. Your mother had a heart attack, but is now in stable condition. If she hadn't been brought in so quickly, she wouldn't have survived. Thank your friend. He saved her life. Friend? Yes, this means that you help each other. What did he look like? Didn't look very good, and I'm sorry, but he smelled bad. But where is he now? He disappeared, left your phone number, and disappeared. When you feed the poor, consider that you fed yourself. This is the nature of the matter. What we have given will return to us.
One gray, rainy day, a little boy named Pat was bored and couldn't sit calmly. He kept running around his father, preventing the latter from preparing a report. Soon, the father ran out of patience and decided to distract the boy a little. The man pulled out one of the old magazines from a heap and tore out a large, colorful sheet with a world map. Then he tore this sheet into many small pieces. Then the father handed this homemade puzzle to his son and said, "Pat, put all these pieces back together so that the map is whole again. And if you do this, I will give you money to buy ice cream." The man thought that it would take even an adult a lot of time to perform this task, and the kid would spend much more time. To the father's surprise, his son knocked on the door in 10 minutes. The kid brought the completed map and put it in front of his father. The father was surprised and asked, "How did you manage to cope with the task so quickly?" The boy shrugged and answered cheerfully, "It was very easy. There was a large picture of a person on the other side of the map. I flipped all the pieces with the map showing to the other side and put together the picture of the person. And then I turned the sheet over again, and the world map was put together correctly. I guess if the person is right, then the world will be right too." The father looked at his son and smiled. He handed the promised money to the kid to buy some ice cream. The boy was happy and ran to his room. "If the person is right, then the world will be right too," the man repeated to himself. He got back to his work and realized that now he definitely had the title of his report. There is a valuable lesson in this story. If you don't like your world, then start changing it by changing yourself. After all, if you are right, then the people surrounding you and your world will always be right too.
Promised? Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I completely forgot about my promise. Sandra was ready to burn with shame and pain. This isn't the first time her daughter says one thing, but does completely different. Today she was supposed to return home for the arrival of the guests, and instead, she showed up when they were leaving. But the story began 17 years ago. Melody and Sandra are sisters who gave birth to their daughters 15 days apart from each other. Melody became a widow as her husband died before the baby was born. Sandra raised her daughter with her husband. Melody had to work hard to provide for her daughter, but despite all the difficulties, she had a rule to devote 2 hours to her daughter every evening. During this time, they played, talked, or danced. Melody never scolded her daughter. Instead, she talked a lot about good and evil, and in any situation, she tried to find a consensus. Sandra did not work, as her husband earned good money. She did household chores all day and watched TV shows. She had neither time nor resources for her daughter. She automatically fulfilled her basic needs for food, sleep, safety. That's all. She knew nothing about what interested her or her experiences, and her daughter didn't know anything about her either. When Melody and Sandra met with their children, Sandra was indignant. "You spoil your daughter too much, and she will grow up to be a spoiled girl." But Melody just smiled back and continued to educate her daughter as her heart suggested. Everything fell into its place when the girls grew up and they were already 17. At that time, Sandra also became a widow, and she had to start working. Melody's daughter devoted a lot of time to her studies in order to enter a prestigious university, and in her free time, she worked part-time to help her mother. Sandra's daughter dropped out of school, hung around with a company of punks all day, and constantly promised to take life more seriously, but nothing changed. Sandra could not understand why her daughter behaves this way, and her sister's daughter completely different. Maybe it's genetics or horoscopes to blame. And that day she finally asked her sister about it. To which Melody replied that the best investment in life is investing in children. They, like trees, feed for many years and then bear fruit. Sandra thought and understood. Melody was nourishing her daughter with warmth and attention, and she was nourishing her daughter with indifference and emptiness. Now her daughter behaves the same way towards her. Invest in your children that which you want to get in the future. Callie and Laura were in the same class. Callie's parents were richer than Laura's parents. Callie often came to school in new clothes, and many girls envied her. Laura, on the other hand, decided not to envy, but to follow fashion trends with what clothes she had. She herself, or with the help of her mother, altered her old things, added details to them, and they look no worse than Callie's branded clothes. The rest of the girls really liked it, and they asked Laura's advice to make their clothes look stylish. Callie didn't like that Laura was taking the attention away from her fashionable appearance. Therefore, Callie made fun of Laura's things and efforts. Laura was upset, and she was very worried, but she couldn't do anything. "Whatever you come up with, my clothes are still from big brands. And real fashion experts will see it. And your clothes, no matter how hard you try, will remain cheap." Laura was upset, and sometimes even cried. But then, she got down to business again and created a new outfit, better than the previous one. One day, Callie came to school with a bracelet. She bragged about it to everyone. Laura wanted one too. She asked Callie where she could buy it and how much it cost. Callie laughed out loud. "This bracelet is one of a kind. There's only one. so your parents wouldn't have enough money for it. Laura said nothing, and after school, she went to a creative store and bought various beads. At home, she made the bracelet herself. It turned out to be so cool that one girl in the class wanted to buy it. And then 2 more girls ordered the same bracelet from Laura. Years passed. The girls grew up. The grown-up Callie entered a fashionable clothing and accessories boutique. She tried on a blouse for a long time. It was soon as if for her, but it was expensive. Callie's husband wasn't doing very well, and she couldn't buy it. The girl hung up her blouse and was very upset. She heard a voice behind her, offering to take it as a gift. Callie turned around in surprise and saw Laura. They exchanged greetings, and Callie said she couldn't accept such an expensive gift. She asked why Laura wants to give her an expensive item if Callie bullied her as a child. This blouse costs almost nothing to me because I'm its creator. This is my boutique and my clothing brand. And thanks to your ridiculing me, I became exactly who I became. Your attitude motivated my imagination and persistence. Callie was shocked. She took her blouse and sadly left the store. Help people turn great difficulties into great success. Share this video. Sarah didn't want to fly when she was 8 months pregnant, but her husband insisted. He said that it's better to endure a couple of hours than to drive all day by car. The trip was important for the husband. His mother was having an anniversary and the whole family gathered. Sarah wanted to stay at home, but decided that her relatives would be offended if she didn't come. But everything went wrong from the very beginning. The flight was delayed by 2 hours. Sarah had a headache. And finally, they announced boarding. Sarah wasn't comfortable on an airplane seat. She wanted to stretch her legs, but there was little space between the chairs, and a woman was sitting in front of Sarah and spoke in a foreign language. Sarah has always been friendly to foreigners, but today it was the last straw. "What's going on?" she said loudly to her husband. "It's just disrespectful. They come to America and they keep speaking their own language. Maybe they're up to something bad, or they're calling me names." Sarah added that she respects all people's cultures, but you can't impose your culture on other people in a foreign country. The woman in front of her didn't say anything back. Sarah felt silent. The baby in her belly was moving, and she felt the seat beneath her become wet. She was frightened. Her water broke. The flight attendant said the pilot is requesting an emergency landing, but that this will not happen until an hour later. She asked the passengers if there was a doctor among them. And then, a woman who was sitting in front of Sarah and speaking in a foreign language took Sarah by the hand and said she was a doctor. She saw the fear and disbelief in Sarah's eyes. The woman smiled and showed her a badge with a title and a photograph of the hospital. She explained that she was running late for the flight and forgot to take it off. The doctor did her job well, and Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Sarah burst into tears and apologized for her rudeness. She said that she was very ashamed. After all, in spite of all she said, the woman helped her. The doctor smiled and replied that she understands how speaking in a foreign language must have looked to Sarah. The thing is, her son just flew in to see her from India after a long separation. He still doesn't know English well. That's why they spoke their native language. Sarah replied that children are most important, and now she understands this more than ever. I don't hold a grudge against you, and I understand in what state you were, and I hope that in the future you'll be more tolerant and kinder to strangers, and you won't judge people without knowing the truth.
There was a poor old farmer living in a small village. He had a young and beautiful wife. For all these years, she dreamed of enjoying life, buying different things and beautiful outfits at fairs without having any needs. But the farmer's old age made it clear he was already weak and could not make enough money. Seeing this, the young wife was often annoyed. As a result, the husband and wife were fighting more and more often. One day, a liar overheard their fight. He saw that a young woman ran out of the house in tears and followed her. A man walked up to the upset woman and talked to her. He said, "Sweet girl, I heard you're arguing with your old husband. You're so beautiful and young. Of course, the old man can't give you what you deserve. He can't fill you with nice outfits and give you joy. I'm a widower, and I'm looking for a wife. I have a lot of money, but no one to spend it on. So why don't you leave the old man and come to town with me? We'll start a new, happy, and prosperous life together there." The young woman listened to a stranger's proposal and agreed right away. The same night, she collected all her clothes and jewelry, took all the money she could find, and went into town with the liar. The next morning, they arrived at a river on the city suburbs. The man turned round and said, "Honey, please stay on this side for now. I will swim to the other side and get a boat to take you. But give me the jewels and money. Some criminals may try to attack you if they see you alone." The young woman gave the man a bundle of money and jewelry without hesitation, and he headed for the river. The cheater got what he wanted, and of course, he never came back. It was noon, and the woman was still waiting for her new lover by the river, but he didn't come. She looked around from boredom and noticed that a jackal came ashore, holding a large piece of meat in its mouth. The beast came to the water and saw a big fish. It threw the meat on the ground and rushed into the river for a new catch. But at the same moment, a hawk came out of nowhere. He grabbed the meat with his claws and flew it into the sky. The wingspans of the bird scared the fish that the jackal was hunting, and it quickly dived into water. The jackal was left on the shore without a single catch. When she saw it, the woman laughed and said, "Silly animal, now you have neither fish nor meat." To which the jackal smiled and answered the woman, "I'm no different from you. You've lost much more than I have." "How come?" asked the puzzled woman. "In pursuit of wealth, you lost your husband, your lover, and all your money." "You're the most pathetic thing I've ever seen," said the beast and hid among the trees. Often, in pursuit for something more, we lose what we have now. Therefore, as you seek new heights, do not forget to appreciate what you have.